Welcome back to Voice Global. This is Pete Erickson, and this is part of our Fireside chat series. And it has been a lot of fun for me to talk with the industry leaders that are out there. My next guest is no exception. Mark Webster is the director of product at Adobe. He's working on voice products, and he has a really cool story to tell. Mark, how are you doing?
Not doing too bad. I'm happy to be with you.
Yeah, remotely, right? I mean, I think that we ask that question a lot. How are you doing? And I think we're all, I guess, maybe managing is a good way to put it. Some days are better than others. What part of the country are you living in?
So I'm in New York, and yeah, every conversation I've been having sort of starts that same way. And a kind of the answer that I've honed in on was pretty good considering.
Yeah,
Considering
pretty
feels
good
like the right
considering.
qualifier.
It is. I mean, it is. It's such an unprecedented time. But let's go back to pre-COVID a little bit. Your story's interesting. You were a part of another organization, which is how you got to Adobe. Do you mind telling us a little bit about the journey, where you were, and then we can bring it up to present day?
Yeah, absolutely. So uh, I had started a startup back in 2011 that had gotten acquired by Groupon, and so I was at Groupon for a while. And then me and the two co-founders from that business left Groupon, and we set up a labs, and we were working on different businesses and kind of thinking about like what's next. And one of the spaces that we were really passionate about was senior care and elder care, and where the role of technology that can play in that industry and in that space, and got really excited about voice interfaces. So this is late 2015, and so Alexa comes out, and voice services become sort of ubiquitous through the cloud, uh, and got really excited about the way voice could participate in elder care and senior care as well. But as soon as we started working on prototypes and concepts and really exploring the technology, it was pretty clear that there was no tooling for the design community to work with voice, right? So we have tons of design and prototyping functionality and different tool sets for visual design. When it came to voice, you basically needed to be a developer. And so I got really excited about that concept, and so went off on my own to kind of explore that and start a company called SaySpring. And so SaySpring was a voice design and prototyping platform specifically for designers. So it wasn't a bot builder, it wasn't click to publish.
Right.
It was for designers to do their work and collaborate with developers, much like we do in the world of visual design. And launched that business in the late 2016. It kind of instantly took off. Really early on in our journey, we were able to meet Adobe. Just Adobe saw the world the same way we do. I've been using
Mm.
Adobe tools my entire career, and it was kind of a match made in heaven. So in early 2018, we joined Adobe, and then sort of took all the lessons and voice technology from SaySpring and integrated that into Adobe XD, which is the design and prototyping tool for Adobe. And now you can use it for voice, you can use it for mobile, web, that kind of stuff.
Wow. Congratulations. That is
Thank
such a
you.
cool story. I didn't know about the Groupon acquisition before that. So you're a repeat offender. I
I
think it
am a
says
serial.
says says a lot about you. And let's talk a little bit about the voice tech industry with regards to the pandemic. And the reality is, and what we're seeing, and what you're hearing a lot about at Voice Global, is that um, there are so many things that the voice tech industry can improve across different industries. But from a design standpoint, maybe from a product standpoint, has there have you seen a difference in the last 3 months, just with regards to maybe the way you view your product, or even maybe the way others are viewing your product, or who's accessing the product?
Yeah, I think there's kind of two things happening at the same time. So the first is, uh, back since I was raising money for SaySpring, people would always ask me like, "What's the killer app for voice?" Right? Uber
Hmm.
couldn't have existed before mobile, and Lyft couldn't exist before mobile, and Instagram. So like, what was the killer app for voice going to be? And sort of came with this idea that the killer app for voice is convenience, right? That there's just so many different things that it's easier to do through voice. And so that might be a voice only experience, but that might be the way voice search is part of Spotify. That may be the way speech playback is part of like the Lyft or Uber driver app, so that you know who you're picking up. And it's really an interface and a mode of interaction more than it is
Hmm.
its own platform. And
Hmm.
so what I think is interesting and what kind of we see happening as we talk to users is this idea of convenience is changing, right? So initially, I would say the convenience was, well, what is it like when to do it the other way, right? What is it like to take out your phone, open an app, right? Do something on a touch interface versus doing it through voice. And I think the situation's changing the definition of convenience. All of a sudden, when you're sensitive about touching something, when you're
Right.
cautious to keep your hands clean, have a mask on, pull down your mask, have Face ID work, sort of all the parts of that process. I think this idea of convenience is going to shift, and I think
Right.
this idea uh, of almost this social awkwardness sometimes of talking to a voice assistant. I
Hmm.
think people are going to be a lot more willing to do that because
Right.
of this evolving conversation around
Yeah.
um, convenience, right? And I think the other thing that's happening is just that people are seeing it less about what are we building for Alexa, and how can we use voice or speech playback or audio in different parts of all of our digital experiences.
I couldn't agree more. Tell us a little bit about the product. I'd love to know a little bit more about the um, product, and are the design features built into the other products, or is it a standalone voice design, product within the Adobe family?
Yeah, so at Adobe, we think of voice specifically falling into two camps. One would be sort of productivity, and one would be creativity, right? So, productivity, how can voice be a part of our products in order to help people do their work better and faster? And then the other piece would be creativity, right? Like, what is Adobe's role to empower the creative community, have access to the medium of voice in order to do their work? And so since we've gotten here, I would say most of the work has been focused on the creativity piece, right? And the reason is because Adobe XD is a tool for designing and prototyping and sharing digital experiences. And so the part of us coming into the organization was really, well, voice is part of that now, right? Audio is part of
Hmm.
that, speech playback is part of that. And so uh, Adobe XD is very much about how do you take the vision of what this product is going to be or this experience is going to be, put that down into pixels, right? Share that with
Yep.
other people, right? Get the feedback, iterate all that stuff before development. And so plenty of our customers are trying to figure that out, but we're trying to figure that out as well, right? So the work that we've done in XD was very much about empowering the creatives within Adobe to now have access to the medium of voice to think about how do we impact the productivity side, right? And so I would say
Yep.
that's kind of where we are now. Is, I think we have a pretty solid offering within Adobe XD around voice prototyping, audio part of that prototyping. We did an integration with Alexa. We have a bunch of other fun stuff coming out. And so really that idea of how do we then take that product and then think more about what is the role of voice across all of Creative Cloud, all of our Marketing Cloud, like the rest of our business. And that's kind of where our team has been focused now, is sort of
Right.
how do we empower now the rest of the organization to figure that stuff out.
Well, I for one thank you for that. I'm excited. I for one am excited about the CRM space and how voice can play a role there. As somebody that we run a platform, we've got a lot of metrics and analytics that we're looking at all the time with regards to site visits and conversions and all that stuff. We're always going to dashboards, right? I would love to just be able to ask the questions about where we are on certain things as I go throughout my day, so I can make decisions. And I am really excited for the way that you're going to be able to integrate voice sort of across the suite of Adobe products. Eventually, it's an exciting time.
Yeah, I mean, again, I drink the Kool-Aid on Adobe a long, long time ago. I've been using Adobe products for a long time, which is why we were super excited to come here. And I think one
Right.
of the exciting things about this business is like we have a really broad portfolio of products, right? So if you look at our whole Document Cloud business, right, that's, data entry, PDFs, right? So it's the e-sign. So there's a whole bunch of places where if you think about now, when we get back to live events, when we get back to checking in the hotels, people are going to be wary of touchscreens, right? And so now, how do you go through that process without touchscreens, right? How do I get to the airport and I'm wearing a mask and I have on gloves and I don't want to touch the touch screen to check in, right? So there's going to be all of these, I think, places where Adobe is just really well positioned to sort of bring that functionality and bring that stuff to users to sort of fit into what our new routines are going to be.
Yeah, I think that there are just so many examples of that. You mentioned hotels and just airports, but so many other places. And I find myself, not wanting to touch doors. And it's going to be transformational. It already is. I mean, we're in the midst of that right now.
Voice is already massively ubiquitous in our day-to-day lives, but I think will just continue to be more so. And so I think that anybody who's involved in digital experience at all is going to need to understand voice technology, how voice technology fits into it, right? And I kind of think it's going to be one and the same. And I think kind of the world we're in now is going to be an accelerant to that happening, right? I've always kind of believed that was going to happen, and now I think it's just going to happen much faster. And for somebody sort of getting involved in it, I think that that piece of like understanding that, I think this idea of a voice designer or a conversational UX designer becomes part of UX design, right? And becomes part of all design. And so it's, nobody's out there as like a touchscreen designer. Right. So I think that idea that like, it's not a platform and it's not a separate silo, it's a form of interaction and just bleeds into everything. And so, I think for people getting started in this, it's like, understand how it works, right? You use tools like Adobe XD or anything else to get closer to it. Even Alexa and blueprints, I think, is like a super fun thing to figure out. If you're already in the design community, like thinking about how voice plays a role in your digital experiences, not as necessarily a separate initiative, right? I always go back to the Spotify example, just because I think it's so unique that for smart assistants, playing music and requesting music is like a huge use case. And so Spotify knows this, and Spotify knows lots of people are going to be used to asking for music. And so they make a voice core to the search experience on the mobile app. And, the response is all visual. There's no personality of who I'm talking to. There's no Spotify voice playing back. But they just are like, this is a really good place to use voice technology in that experience. And so I think that's kind of the blueprint for this. I feel like early on, we kind of all thought this was going to be like mobile, that it was going to feel platformy. It was going to enable all these separate apps. But as the story is kind of playing itself out, I think it just bleeds into sort of everything else.
Yeah. I think that's well put, well said. And we're excited to be a part of this community. We're excited to see it grow and evolve. And Mark, we've enjoyed following your career, the work that you're doing at Adobe. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't wait for it. The events in the past have been great, and I think figuring out kind of what those events are going to look like moving forward is going to be a lot of fun to do together.
My guest has been Mark Webster. He is the Director of Product at Adobe, focusing on voice and conversational design products. Thanks again, Mark.
Thank you.